Hi, welcome to your free lesson for myfreeactingclass.com for Monday, December 7th. I'm Michael Bean. I'm an acting teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years and I've been teaching film and TV acting for 18. And this is my personal, giving back to quarantine project. The heads up that these lessons are going to take a break this Thursday, and then we will be back the first week in January. So you can check myfreeactingclass.com and that'll give you the link and everything. And one of the things I would really love if you're watching this video is if you would put in the comments or send me an email, info@myfreeactingclass.com, and let me know what it is that you want more of, so that I can spend those 3 weeks planning some lessons and just kind of percolating in the back of my mind and come back in January really ready to go. So that means the last class for the winter break will be Thursday, December the 10th, and then my plan is to start back fresh on Monday, January 11th. So, yep, what was that? About a month off. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. So, 10th, back on the 11th. And so without further ado, let us jump into today. We had Rogi Yu, who came and joined us on Thursday, whose lesson I highly recommend going back and watching on YouTube if you are inclined to do such things, because he has a wonderful mix of both like grounded and practical and poetic in terms of his approach to the work. But listening to his lesson really put me in contact with the fact that I have not been really clearly or specifically talking about text analysis or script analysis. And so I chose a very short scene, which I often do for Mondays anyway. It's really just a couple of lines. I will have you two read it if you're keen. And then what I would like to do is go through some of the ways that I currently like to explore text. And with the top level caveat, that the way that I approach work is from a place of curiosity and exploration. That's just what lights me up. It's the way that I teach, and it's the way that I approach my own work. And it is certainly not the only way to approach things. But what that means is, instead of saying, here's what I always do step 1, and here's what I always do step 2, I'm going to give you some of the tools that I like, with the caveat, try it. And you got to try it full out to see if it works for you, but then, mix and match. So this a short script from a project called, at the time it was casting, it was called Penosa. Ultimately it was called Red Widow when they cast it. It's just 2 lines, from one of the characters. We're going to be looking at the female characters, like the older daughter of this couple. Let me show you the project so you can get a sense of the style. Right, so here we are, Red Widow. This is ABC. You can see the little logo down here. So this is primetime sort of crime drama thriller. Right, so we get a sense of the style, we get a sense of the show. All right, especially if you're going out for something like this that is in multiple seasons, it really only takes a couple of minutes to hop on to IMDb, and then onto YouTube to watch the trailer and get like a little sense of it. So I know it's a little bit laggy if you're watching live by Zoom, but we'll just watch a little piece of the trailer so you can get a feel for the style.
Hey, Marta. I'm praying that you never see this. Because if you're watching, something went really wrong. I love you and the kids so much. I tried to protect them, but now it's up to you. It's nobody but yourself.
Guys, come on.
I'll call you later, right?
You nervous, it?
I'm here now, Dad. I'm gonna have to answer to my work.
Is that so?
Heads up. Agent Ramos. It's been a while.
Shirley was ripped off 2 nights ago. A couple of his guys were killed in the process.
What did you do to us?
You have to get out of this business.
Can't do that right now. Things are complicated.
I will protect my children.
Anyway, we could watch more, but you get a sense of it. So American drama, crime, family. And then let me open up the script and we'll look at the short script. So Candy, would you read Natalie and Duke, if you wouldn't mind reading Gabriel, even though Gabriel's substantially younger than you are. Gabriel's the kid brother, but you don't have to do a voice for it. It's I don't know if this has ever come up, but if you do ever go in for a scene and you have a reader, actually maybe this is more relevant for self-tapes. One of the things that I like to say to readers for self-tapes is, and I'm sure you know this for yourselves, but you might not know to sort of give it as a top level note to readers. So if somebody's reading with you online, just say, hey, please don't do character voices. Because basically with a self-tape, even if they're really good character voices, even if they're really good at it and they can do a really excellent mom, kid, dad, big sister, the risk is that that's distracting. That then the folks watching the tape are going to be like, wow, that reader's amazing. They did 6 voices. And more likely they're going to be like, oh my God, what is that reader doing? Why are they adding the grandpa voice? This isn't The Simpsons. This is a serious TV show. So just as a top level for anybody who's doing a self-tape, please ask your reader, and if you're a young person and the readers are parents, please ask your parents not to do character voices at all. You want your reader to be as simple and straight as humanly possible. Okay. So you'll see why I chose this in just a moment, because it's so straightforward. Boris smiles. It's so good to see Marta. Grateful, pulls Dina into a half hug. Dina hugs her back. These two are tight. Meanwhile, Natalie glances at Franklin. She leans to Gabriel. That's you, Candy.
What's wrong with Dad?
That's you, Duke.
I was muted. Probably feeling like the moron he is for leaving a freaking gun in his car.
Natalie's surprised by his hostility.
Or it's because you've been such a jerk to him lately. What's your problem?
Gabriel debates answering, but suddenly Dina grabs them up. Stop. Now, so start, stop, here's what it is. Now, there's all this crossed out stuff that's in here that's worth reading. I don't know if you can see this, because again, I have to look past the black, but Marta's line here is, you got me down the aisle, though. So Dina got Marta down the aisle. Interesting. Dina, come on, you guys, let's go get drunk. Gabriel, yes. Marta, no. But she laughs as she guides her family up the dock. Close on Huey Lewis or some other semi-famous Bay Area musician singing his big hit Power of Love or something. Widen to include Marina Clubhouse reception evening. Huey performs for this raucous party, platters of food everywhere, libations flowing, toasts being made. Most of the guests are plowed. The dance floor goes nuts for Huey. Kat and Joe are at the center of dancing, thoroughly enjoying themselves. Natalie dances with Boris. Nearby, Gabriel bobs his head and sees a cute cater waitress as the song ends to wild applause. So it's worth the reading the crossed out bits, because I don't think you would get the sense that they were at a wedding if you didn't do that. Yeah, and so if we are going to kind of do a quick script analysis, on the on this, we've already seen the style. I'm going to quickly pull up the story questions template, just for reference visually. And this is the 10 questions that I've gone over here in class a whole bunch of times, but I think is useful to keep coming back to. The idea being that you glance through it, and hopefully you sort of quickly can see those spots where maybe you haven't made some of the clear decisions that need to be made. So style, the writer's story, what's going on, okay, I'm at a wedding, and you have to decide if it's your mom's wedding, or if it's cousin's wedding, or sort of, whose wedding it is. You might be able to do a little more research and find out, but you're gonna have to make a choice about that. Your story, if you're Natalie, you're gonna have to make a choice about that. arc, and this is interesting, even with 2 lines, even with this very, very short scene, I think we still get arc or change from beginning to end. Would make decisions about who I am, who the other person is, the script relationship, personalization, what do I want? Objective. Now, Rogi's point on Thursday, which I thought was really solid, is that often what happens is that we jump to analysis, or to interpretation rather, before going in more detail or more deeply through the text. So let's go back to this text, and we're just going through here. So when we're looking at this, we've got Natalie glances at Franklin, she leans to Gabriel. And so if I'm doing something like this, I'm preparing it for an audition, typically I'll read the whole thing to myself out loud a couple of times, especially the stage direction, because it's really easy to miss something like this and then just not have a moment before. And I see it just as often with self-tapes as I did with auditions previously, that folks, I think, are so focused on making sure that they get the lines right, that they're not bringing in the life. And so it's one of those sort of snappy catchphrases that I should be able to attribute to a particular acting teacher, but I've heard it from multiple acting teachers now. So, which is that it's not the lines, it's the life. And especially with something short like this, bringing in that clear moment before is one of the ways to bring in the life of the scene in a way that makes it make sense. And you've got it really written in here. You don't have the opinion written in, but you've got the text written in. So maybe we'll do this in red. Okay, and so we've got your, oops, come on now. We've got your moment before. Right, Natalie glanced at Franklin. Franklin obviously is dad. She leans to Gabriel. These two are brother and sister, which you would get in the breakdown, and I'm just going to tell you. And so there's the glance, but I think that one of the things that's necessary, here is to decide what Franklin's doing. And ideally you want it to be something that is emotionally charged, that this glance is not neutral. One of the things that I often hear from students is, oh yeah, it's a little bit like this, I care a little bit, it's no big deal, but, and I think that if we want to move into compelling storytelling, we don't want to get crazy, you don't want to take wild risks with what's on the page. But I think that you want to decide that you care and that your character cares about what's happening as much as possible. And so with that in mind, I would go back to that idea of something that is personalized or personally affective, and this is before we even started with the text, but we're deciding what is Franklin doing that is so disturbing, right? So he's sitting alone at the end of the dock, drinking heavily. He's getting into a fight, with, his brother, or, with your mom, or, with somebody who sort of he's normally very close with, right? So he's doing something that is disturbing, and personally disturbing to you. And then I think that in that sort of top level where you're deciding your story, and again, this is even before you get to the text. If you're Natalie, it looks like Natalie, based on these lines, what's wrong with dad? Or it's because you've been such a jerk to him lately. What's your problem, right? So she's not saying anything judgmental here about the dad. And so to me, that says that whatever is happening with dad is troubling her, but not in a like that we've got this polarity of Gabriel judging dad, for whatever he is doing down, at the end of the dock, which I've just arbitrarily decided that's where he is. But really, it's just anywhere that's on the other side of the camera, right? So I've got my one eye line for Gabriel if I'm Natalie on this side of the camera, or maybe even here, even closer to the lens, but not directly at the lens. And I'm going to put the other eye line here on the dock. And maybe I'll do something creative by, sort of using that line out. Okay. You know, what's going on there? And I'm going to come back to Gabriel over here. Right. So if I want something that's going to be sort of personally concerning to me, then I might play with a couple of options. And especially with a short scene like this, I think that there's freedom to do that. What's wrong with Dad? Talked about, inner imagery before, and so, relationship, right? If you want, if you're Natalie and you want as much concern as possible, then I might insert oh gosh, one of the people who I care about the most. Does that make sense? And be like, oh right, so I'm saying Dad, but what I mean is Mom. What I mean is and you insert the name of like the person who sort of you would be the most concerned to see sort of behaving badly, and you are clear and specific about that. You would need to make those decisions about Gabriel as well. Oh, come on. Technology. Okay, we've got Gabriel probably feeling like a moron he is for leaving a frickin' gun in his car. Natalie surprised by his hostility. This was something that Rogi did, on Thursday. As he marked the continuation here, which I thought was an interesting thing just to sort of offer yourself visually, right? Visual cues are really important for memory, or it's because you've been such a jerk to him lately. The risk is that if you don't mark something like that, or if you don't sort of rehearse it, that it's possible that you put small pauses at the end of the line. That's particularly noticeable in actors when there's a line that's at the very end of a page that then continues on the subsequent page. In my experience, actors will almost always unconsciously pause there, even if the line is supposed to be continuous. And so these arrows can be really, really helpful in that respect, right? Or it's because you've been such a jerk to him lately. And so in order to make this make sense, we are going to, I'm going to have to decide, what, expletive, I would personally put in here, to, that has the same weight as jerk. And one of the things that I've used before as an exploring of text exercise when I'm really slowing down is going word by word, and looking for, and basically being theatrical with it on purpose, giving each word emphasis to see if I can really feel into that relationship. And sometimes that is more effective for me than writing it down, is to just go really slowly, right? So if I'm doing Gabriel, Gabriel's line here, then that might sound like, probably feeling like the moron he is for leaving a freaking gun in his car. And it's not about realistic at this point. It's about like, I want to really lay into my memory some of those strong opinions about each of these things. And I went through that faster than I think I would if I was doing this exercise. I will sometimes do this when I'm reading in early stages, and I'll sometimes do it after I've got the lines, but before I've really started to craft my interpretation, so that I don't have to think about the words anymore. And instead I can really just put that meaning into them in detail. And it, for me anyway, it does take really slowing it down to get that opinion in there. It's because you've been such a jerk to him lately, and is that today, is that this week, and then what is this little pause here, right? Jerk to him lately, and then if I'm preparing Natalie's character, maybe there's even like a little look over at Dad there, or there's sort of what is the connecting thought, because these are sort of a new thought. Been such a jerk to him lately, and then there's a moment of like investigating the brother, or escalating or following it up. Maybe I'm even looking at the dad for the first part of it. I'm like, well, like that's why he's acting this way. And then I'm going to turn to my brother and confront the brother. There's a lot of different ways to play with it, even with such a short line. And so that's just understanding the ideas in there and personalizing them. And then once you're going to go deeper into it, that's when I think that it would be important to add that personalization. How do I empathize with the feelings of the character? What do I want, the objective from the other character? And finding that short charged phrase you would use. And that's how you'd find arc to even a short scene like this, because even this, like, it's a micro scene, but most actors who do it, because it's a micro scene, they'll be like, cool, it took me 5 minutes to learn the lines, it took me 10 minutes to set up the camera, it took me 5 more minutes to shoot, and then I went on to the scene where there was like more juice and it was more interesting. And there's an opportunity, if they want you to record the scene, if it's part of the audition sides, to use each scene to show off something new about the character, and to show off that you are interested in telling good stories, and that you have the sort of technical chops to do that. And so if this little micro scene goes from like, oh my God, oh, is dad really, should I go over there? Oh man, like I'm going to touch base with my brother. Maybe we should go do something. Okay, now my brother's being a jerk. Okay, now I'm going to turn and take out all of my discomfort, on my brother and blame him for it, and attack my brother instead of helping my dad. Then we've got a pretty clear emotional arc, even in whatever 3 sentences, 2 lines of dialogue. Okay, that's my short lesson for today. Now, do you have questions, about any of that, before I turn off the video? Yeah, please do jump in there.
Well, with everything you talked about breaking down the script, how much emphasis or tie-in would you put in with the breakdown, as those are normally given to the character description and so forth? It's pretty important, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important for understanding the story. I don't obsessively go over the breakdown, partly because the breakdown is often their like idealized version of the character, as opposed to the Michael Biehn version of the character. I like to trust that because there are 1,000 actors they could have chosen, that if they choose me, regardless of what it says in the breakdown, they want my version of it. But I absolutely read the breakdown carefully for information, because sometimes that'll do the work of, right, those 3 descriptive adjectives for me, or those 3 descriptive adjectives for the brother. If I can lift those right from the breakdown, great. It's even less work for me. And then I know that the story that I'm telling is in line with the story that the directors, producers, decision makers want to tell. I think that breakdowns can sometimes be traps, because they can sound very result oriented. They'll like lead with a feeling, or they'll say like, Gabriel's like really a jerk. And it can be easy to get into sort of putting that on the outside and doing the result, instead of more deeply understanding the story and finding sort of your own version of it. You're like, yeah, he might be behaving like a jerk, I'm still reading that for information. But then I'm going to go, oh, you know what? Like, he's really worried about his dad, and, like, here's how that's coming out of him. He's starting to like, make problems for everybody else. Pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And that's the scene I'm really playing. Right. So, complicated answer to a simple question. Is that helpful, Duke?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, please.
I had a question too. So I know the scene is like really short. So would this be the kind of thing where you could put in a second self-tape, like, for that? Because I was thinking it might also depend on her relationship with her brother, how she reacts to it. It's not just a father relationship. So it's like, is she kind of chummy with her brother usually? So you could play it one way with the chumminess, and then with like,
nice. Yeah. And if you really went all the way with that, which is essentially like just making different choices about sort of who he is to you and what that relationship is, then you get 2 really different takes of the scene. So
I was wondering if that's like, because it's so short, don't do that, or That's
Oh no,
something
with it
that
with
you
a
don't
super
do.
short scene like that, unless you've been given instructions in the breakdown not to, 'cause sometimes the breakdown will say only send one take of each scene. Right? I've started to see that in self-tapes, I think, because um, folks
There's so
were,
many.
yeah, and different decision makers have different opinions about it. There's lots of them who think it's fine and great, and then there's some of them who really don't want it. But thankfully, they'll usually tell you that in the breakdown. So another good reason, per Duke's question, to like read the breakdown carefully. But yeah, Candy, that's a fantastic example. This would be a great time to do two different, completely different takes of the scene, with the caveat, that they were completely different, right? That it wasn't just like, one tiny little thing was different in the middle, but like the relationships, with maybe with the dad and the brother, but certainly if the focus was the relationship with the brother, that it was really different from one scene to the next, and then they'd be like, oh, wow, oh, that is an interesting take on that. Or at least they would see that you have versatility, which I think doing two takes, if you have the option in a self-tape, is one way to reassure decision makers that you are directable, which otherwise they don't know. Like there's always the possibility, as unfair as it is, that they will watch your one excellent take of each scene and go, oh man, what if that Michael Biehn guy just drilled that one version like 100 times, and gets to set and won't be able to change it. You know what? Let's hire this other guy who's got a more extensive resume, because, I feel safer with that. So this was possible, Candy, that doing that would even be a competitive advantage.
Cool. Cool. Thanks.
Well, that's all the time for a Monday lesson. Let's wrap there. Thank you for making time. It's a pleasure to see you both. And I will be back tomorrow with more of my free acting class lesson.
Awesome. Thank you. This is great. Bye.